What's happening, everyone? It's Joe, and today I want to talk to you about this fragrance haul that I have. I got in a bunch of fragrances, and most of them are from the Middle East, a couple that are not. Happy Canada Day and July 4th sale, I guess, so stay tuned. Okay, the first one I want to talk to you about is a clone of a now actually discontinued fragrance. Actually, I got a couple clones here, and I'm going to do a video coming up in the future to talk specifically about clones because there's some different kinds, and I think they warrant a discussion. So I'm going to bring that up in the future. The first one, though, is a clone of Invictus Aqua, which was discontinued, I think, from 2016. That is Hayati from Lattafa. Let me pull the notes up on this one. I'll say this, I hadn't smelled it before. I was super curious because it has a whole lot of hype. People really like it a lot. And I'll say this, if this clone is accurate, then yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a nice scent. I think maybe the Invictus line just isn't for me. It smells nice, but then on my skin, it just doesn't do great things. So let me pull up the notes here. So the notes on this one are really interesting, actually. Top notes of apple and bergamot, heart notes of cinnamon, woodsy notes, base notes of vanilla and musk. That doesn't sound right to me. That doesn't sound like Aqua to me. Hold on, let me pull up, because I know this is supposed to be a clone of Invictus Aqua. Let me pull up that. The notes for Aqua are grapefruit, violet leaf, sea notes, violet, woody notes, palisander, rosewood, base notes of ambergris and amberwood. This doesn't smell like the notes that are provided on the website there, so I think that's probably more accurate. I would say this is a perfectly fine fragrance if you want something from the Invictus line that is very close to Aqua, but you don't have Aqua itself. You can always get Invictus Legend. To me, this is just a slightly more floral version of the same thing. It's very marine, blue, juicy fragrance, but then there's this geranium. It's very expensive, very loud. To be honest, it's not one that I'm wild about, but I go back to it every once in a while just because I want to try and give it another go. I feel like that's going to be the same way it is for Hayati. I'm going to give it some wearing though, just to see. But I just find that a lot of these Invictus fragrances on my skin, they just kind of, they get cloying, and after like an hour or two, I'm like, please just go away, stop, just go away. So I don't know, but I'll give it a try. It's a nice scent. I get the impression that these scents, the Paco Rabanne scents especially, are more for everyone else than they are for the person wearing them. So what I mean by that is I think they're going to smell more pleasant in the air to someone who's a couple feet away who catches a whiff of it, just like a little glancing blow, versus like me right next to it wafts up out of my shirt or something like that, hits me in the face, and it's just a lot more concentrated. These are very expansive fragrances, so I could see them needing to be spread out to smell. And that's certainly the case with this one. You really do need to give this one room to breathe. So that's Hayati. All right, next up we have a hype beast. Boy, I'm not even gonna try with the first part of this name because I'll get it wrong. I'm just gonna call it Sublime. And the notes for this one are apple, lychee, rose, plum, jasmine, moss, vanilla, and patchouli. This one is, it's been described as like a fruit punch. That's not a bad description for it. I will say, if you have smelled the other fragrances in the line, it's kind of a Goldilocks, moving from least to most fruity. So the clone of Oud for Greatness, I think they call it Oud for Glory, I can't remember, but their clone is like a nutmeggy, spicy oud fragrance. Then they go to their Atomic Rose clone, which I can't remember the name of, but it's like the purple bottle, and that's like a very juicy, jammy rose, a little feminine. And this one I think is a little bit more unisex. It's like fruit punch, but then in the dry down it has that same kind of DNA from the purple bottle. you get that rose in there. It's very nice. I would say probably leans a little bit more feminine than masculine, but I'd have no problem wearing this. So I'll give it some wearings. I like it. It's like a very clean, bright red. I think the bottle color is very apt. I think you think of the kind of fruity flavor that you would get from something like this. It's pretty accurate. A little more tropical maybe than the red might suggest, but I could see this being really nice on a sweet day. It's sweet. It's a playful, fun fragrance. And like everything else from the line, all impressions so far is that this thing lasts forever. So good stuff. All right, next up we have one that I was probably one of the more anticipated ones I've been wanting to get for a while, and that is Guerlain's L'Homme Idéal Eau de Parfum. So the notes on this one are almond, spices, lavender, bergamot, rosemary, thyme, middle notes of cherry, vanilla, incense, Bulgarian rose, base notes of leather, tonka bean, and sandalwood. This one, I'm gonna spray it on test strip. I've given this a couple wearings, and I have the Extreme, the L'Homme Idéal Extreme version, which subs out the cherry for plum. I gotta say, I like that more, quite a bit more, I think, than this one. This is growing on me, but initially the cherry was kind of off-putting, a little almost urinal cakey to me, which is unpleasant. That's not what you want. You don't want to be like, oh, it smells like a clean men's room. That has kind of gone away as I'm starting to get more from the scent, but first impression wasn't great. Performance is good, lasts for a long time on my skin. The dry down, once the cherry kind of chills out and it's more of the almond and the vanilla, it's a little bit better. But even in that case, I would still pretty much use the Extreme in the same circumstances. So I can't really think of a situation where I'd want to wear this over the Extreme. But if you really like the idea of cherry more than plum, give that a shot. And from all the research I've done, it seems like the EDP is just a more amped up version of the EDT, so worth just getting that one. And Amazon has it for like 60 bucks. So that's really pretty cheap for one of these fragrances, I thought. So that's why I grabbed it. I'm gonna keep giving it some goings because I'm not sure, I don't wanna write it off. I think it's one that might grow on me over time. It's already starting to grow on me a little bit. So I'll give it more wearings and report back. Finally, I have the fragrance that I am the most excited about. It's a clone that I think you've probably never heard of, and it's a clone of a fragrance that you've probably also never heard of. Don't see very many people talking about it online. That is Emir's Vibrant Spicy Tobacco from Paris Corner. This one, I don't have a clone of I don't have the full-size bottle of the thing that it's cloning. However, I do have a sample, this adorable, precious little sample, and it is Byredo's Tobacco Mandarin. And this is such an interesting fragrance. I went into Nordstrom's a few weeks ago, and I just wanted to smell stuff. So I was going around basically smelling everything from every designer and house. And I got to Byredo. There's a lot of like famous ones. I'd never smelled anything from their house. So I was going through and just kind of sniffing different things. I got to the Tobacco Mandarin, I smelled it and was immediately taken aback. One of the, oh here, I should tell you the notes, but one of the prominent notes, top notes, cumin, mandarin orange, coriander, heart notes, tobacco, leather, labdanum, base notes, olibanum, sandalwood, and oud. So I didn't know anything about the notes when I smelled it. I just saw that it was Tobacco Mandarin, picked it up, smell it, and it has a heavy dose of cumin. Kind of a shocking amount of cumin. And if you haven't smelled that before, it's gonna probably give you one of two impressions, either BO, like body odor, or Indian food, or both. I kind of had that in my case. It was kind of like hitting me like both. I like thinking food and body odor at the same time. But there's a richness on top of the already heavy dose of cumin. It has a heavy dose of tobacco and smoke sitting on top of that. And then you mix in this very sweet, juicy orange that at first I couldn't really pick up. And then I realized, oh no, it's actually a very sweet scent. So you have all this stuff, you have this like sweet, juicy orange of a lot of smoke, and then this like thread of cumin going through it. And then the thing I discovered very deep in the fragrance, kind of you have to really deep in or go into it deep, because I was smelling it and I'm like, well, it smells like body odor, but it doesn't smell dirty, but it smells funky, but it still smells clean. There's this like very subtle shampoo note or something, some sort of like a shampoo, hair or something in the dry, like in the very bottom of this. It's just very subtly there, but it does give the impression of cleanness in the fragrance. So even though you've got this like kind of, I don't know if you've ever smelled beeswax, and it has kind of that sweet funkiness to it. It doesn't smell just like sugar, it smells like sugar and something, could be bee spit. So I think mixing the cumin with the orange really does bring a lot of interesting depth to the fragrance. So that is Byredo's Tobacco Mandarin. How does the Paris Corner clone stack up to it? Well, I would say, like everything else I've smelled from Paris Corner, in the air, you're not going to really be able to tell a difference. If you go side by side, you can absolutely tell a difference. It's not as sweet, doesn't have as strong of the cumin note, and then as it dries down, it only diverges from there. It's a little heavier on the smoke and it's heavier on the tobacco and the leather. That being said, again, I'm going to talk about this in an upcoming episode about clones, but I think that this still does a good job without replacing this. I still very much want to get a bottle of this at some point and intend to. It's just damn expensive. So I really want to, though, because this is such a weird fragrance. You couldn't wear it in the office. It's too distracting to wear in the office. People would be offended by it because it would be just too attention grabbing all the time. Anytime someone smelled it, they would be like, what is going on? If you wore it on a date, I think it can be unisex. I think men will respond to it on a woman a lot better if the woman like really rises to the fragrance, because it is a commanding fragrance. You have to be your intensity has to match its intensity, otherwise it'll wear you. I think the same is true for men, but it would be sexier on a woman. Just saying, like, there's plenty of men's fragrances that I feel like do something like this, but I feel like this would work on a woman and it would work really well. $350 for 50 ml is a steep price to pay. I think this I got for like 40, or no, it was like 30 bucks from Perfume Online for 100 ml. And to get something in the same DNA, it's not as good. It's like the diet version. I mean, I think that's kind of typically the case with clones. There are very few that match the actual quality of what they're cloning. I'll maybe make a video about the ones I think that do. This one doesn't match the quality of what it's cloning, but it still does enough job of evoking it that I'm into it, and it gives me the ability to enjoy the DNA without spending a crazy amount of money yet, but I want to. So those are all. I got a couple others, but I'm saving those for a different video. I hope you enjoyed this. I would say if any of these interest you, probably the one that like, I think the Emir spicy tobacco, vibrant spicy tobacco, is probably the best out of the bunch that I got here. Sublime is interesting, though maybe a little bit more fruity than I would typically wear, but I'm gonna give it some goes. But this is just such an interesting DNA, so unique. So I'll probably wear this and eventually get a full bottle of this. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.